Okay. Thank you, Patrick, for, the presentation that you're going to do about your chapter. And probably we can start by introducing yourself and talking a bit about your chapter.
Okay. Hi, good morning, everybody. I'm Patrick Chun from Vancouver, Canada, and I'm one of the co-founders of a group called the IITTI World Civility Index. And you may say, well, what is this World Civility Index? And it is somewhat like your credit rating, but instead of measuring how well a person can pay his bills, it measures how much manners he has, or how much empathy, or how much intercultural awareness a person has. And so everybody can have a number. We have a little app so they can have the bragging rights to show it to their bosses, the human resource managers, so on and so forth, to have raises or promotions and so on. So that's the whole idea of the World Civility Index when we started in 2011. And we're very happy right now is being officially accepted to be part of the United Nations Department of Economics and Sustainable or Social Affairs. So it's called the DESA or DISA. That's the department they have. And so with that, they help us in some of the promotions, some of the ideas, brainstorming, and we set up a project for them. And one of the project we have with the United Nations is we pledge to have something like 30,000 students around the world learning about civility, learning about having good manners, having empathetic kind of outlook, and so on. That was the first project. We finished that right before COVID. So it was, otherwise, how can you actually get all the people together? It turns out when there was a COVID, it was better for us, believe it or not, better, in terms that a lot of students are at home. They got nowhere to go and except online, and our stuff is all online. It's what they call digital first. So and so the second project we had, we were aiming for something like 100,000 students around the world to do that. It turns out we have something like 200,000 students. So that was really good, and we show them articles to read. Yes, reading. And videos to watch, and the occasional webinars that they go on, and we invite experts to talk about many subjects that the young people would think about, and so on. So that was very successful. And here with IDG, this is also very exciting project. When we being told that there's an IDG by some friends, we go, wow, this is a framework that is so complete and is exactly what we have been talking about. But we're running in parallel universe, and myself being a techie, we talk about building a software, building an app, and so on. And IDG is talking about the framework. So this is a very rigorous conclusion in how do you frame inner developments like empathy, like communication skills, intercultural awareness, the same kind of things that we've been talking about. So we go, yes, this is the group that we want to join. And so here we were here about a year and a half, 2 years ago, and we talked to people about this and so on. So one thing led to another. The Swiss IDG with what they're trying to do is to have a book about something like this. And so we say, well, we're going to try to see if we can, write a chapter. And so with good grace, they accepted the one chapter. So we wrote about how the two ideas can work very, very handsomely together. And that is the IDG having this solid framework about inner development goals step by step, and also with the World Civility Index is the way to quantify IDG. That's the way how we put it in the book, is how do you measure something that is so wonderful. And so young people and young at heart can have a number that they say, well, I earned 1 point today because I read an article or watch a video and so on. So this kind of measurement is what the corporate world really likes. Is they, well, yeah, the problem now in the corporate world, for example, is everybody would say they are, a good communicator, they are good team players on their resume. And so human resource people keep on telling me and say, Patrick, how do we solve this? Yeah, we can, everybody says something like this. So on the billions of resume out there, those lines are pretty empty. But now they can say, well, no, I actually earned some points and I earned so many points and so on. The reason why the points are important is not so much they learn about empathy and so on, just by the fact that they earn the points. Because we don't allow people to binge read or binge watch videos and so on. They can't say, oh, I watched 10 videos and earned 10 points. No. The app only allows them to watch one video or read one article per day. So if they have 100 points, that means the person has the discipline to spend 100 days in learning something and having the ideas that this is something that is important. So for a human resource manager, when they see, somebody with 100 points on their resume, it shows discipline. That person has discipline. That's a quality that is fairly hard to find anywhere else, on the internet, on social media and so on. People always put on their best self, going on vacation and so on. So how do you show that person has a discipline? And in work, you have to have discipline. Discipline is more important than talent in some cases. So those are quality that allows the human resource manager to say, well, everything else being equal, if person A has 100 points and person B didn't bother, everything else being equal, we recommend the company to give the interview to the person with the 100 points. So this is all before any interview is needed. The human resource manager with hundreds of resumes coming in, they can already sort out those people that they think would be more suitable for the company. So those are the kind of cultivation, if not education. Those are the kind of cultivation with reading and watching videos and so on can really help companies in finding good people in that sense. And for the university students, for example, they have the time before they are actually onboarding to a company. Usually when people go on into a job like my previous life, we don't have a lot of time as an engineer, for example. You are drinking water from the fire hydrant, and there are a lot of work to be done. And usually inner development is the last thing on their mind, believe it or not. And that is very sad because when a company, it's almost like our political system, is very short term. And so they only see the very short term. Well, how do we get to the next quarter without bankrupting or making more money and so on? So the longer term, really meaningful and needed things like inner development, talking about empathy and all that, those kind of trainings don't really exist that much. If they are the once in a blue moon that they do something like this. Whereas you really need to have, a constant reminder so that the mindset is really changed. Changing mindset is probably, well, it's definitely more difficult than inventing AI, I think. And so myself being a programmer, I can see that, changing mindset, you can say it's very simple, but it's also very hard. So those are kind of things that we run into. And with something like what we have done is to measure something like this on a consistency basis so that the companies can use it. And like I said, companies don't do that, but university students and maybe even younger. Now there are people in our group saying, well, maybe even younger kids, like in high school. I said, great. And all the research have shown that the younger they are, the more receptive they are. So how do we get to the younger group, like in elementary school? maybe even a 5-year-old. So they can have this kind of DNA, if you may. Last thing I want to bring up is the advent of AI, artificial intelligence. That seems to be the buzzword nowadays in the world. And I studied a little bit of AI while I was in school, and so it's very very gratifying. I was at the same school where the recent Nobel laureate, Dr. Geoffrey Hinton, from Canadian, and he's the godfather of AI, and he was talking about, well, we should really do it like this, and the whole world was laughing at him. Oh, that was 30 years ago, but he said, we should really build AI like the brain. Whereas when I was trained, it was like building AI in an algorithmic way. So we gotta write out all the rules and so on. It turns out it didn't work very well. But Geoffrey Hinton won out, and the rest was history. We got ChatGPT and now DeepSeek and so on. Well, why am I saying all that? Well, AI is going to change the world in a big way, and that is we're all going to be running out of a job if you believe all the experts. And I do believe we're going to run out of a job at least in 20 years. AI is going to take away a lot of white-collar jobs. They're already taking away jobs for junior legal assistants, for example. Those kind of routine work can be done by AI better than anybody. Radiology, looking at X-rays. AI actually turns out to have a higher accuracy than even the most experienced radiologists. So what would a hospital do in terms of budget and hiring radiologists and all the other specialists? So those things are coming. They're already here. They're not just coming. So those are the issue. And there are people who think that in the future, something like inner development would be the most important thing. That's the only thing that we have. And the question is, what are we going to do with the 8 billion citizens on Earth? 8 billion friends. And we're all going to be out of a job, except maybe, a few millions. So it's what, 7 billion, 9, well, you figure it out. So those are the things that are coming. And so inner development is the way to go. There are two reasons. One is we don't want to kill each other because we got nothing to do and we got bored and so on. That's one reason. Second reason is we need to have AI behaving nicely. And experts like Dr. Geoffrey Hinton, the Nobel laureate I just talked about, there's another person, Mo Gadet. They're both Googlers. They both came from Google, or ex-Googlers now. They resign because they want to come out to the world and say, we need to have AI behaving properly. The only way to do that is for humans, all of us, to behave nicely so that we can show we are the parents, we are the role model for AI to grow up. If we want AI to grow up and know that we should not kill people, because we have difference in opinion, we should still have the civility to communicate well and be able to move on, seeing common ground and so on. Now, they are worried that AI is not seeing that right now. AI is seeing the other way. AI is seeing in social media, in our politics, in our conversation, that we don't have this kind of inner development. We don't have this kind of refinement that needs to train AI to have this AI DNA that have this kind of civility in mind. So those are the things that I think we need to really talk about. And at IDG, we are smack center in this crossroad of humanity, where we can go one way, we can go the dystopia way, the Terminator, Arnold Schwarzenegger Terminator way, or the other way is the real utopia that people say, Patrick, you're an idiot. We'll never get there. Well, I think we could. It all depends on, for example, what we do in IDG, because we are there. If not us, who else? So those are the opportunity that I see, and I'm very happy that we are all here and we are all like-minded into thinking like this. There are many ways to reach the top of the mountain, but I think at IDG we are very close that we want to walk the same way up that mountain, and so there are many ideas that I can go on for half a day, but I'll stop right here and we can have some kind of a discussion. So thank you so much.
Thank you, Patrick. Ella, do you want to ask something?
Yes. Now hearing you talking, Patrick, I was thinking actually that, okay, with this, let's say, with your index that you created, in a sense, it's just like, does it serve the same role as a university degree? Because they say that it's not actually what you learn at the degree, but it shows your intention. That is, so in that sense, could we say that your index serves in the same way? Because if I have let's say the rating, they have a good rating in your app, and then an HR specialist takes it and he sees there, actually I show my potential or maybe my sensitivity to these issues. Is it the right way to look at it?
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. We had a breakthrough, a revelation as to how we measure empathy. For example, people say, "Well, Patrick, you can measure that," and as an engineer, we're into measurement. So we say, "Well, how do you measure empathy? You can measure this soft skills." Like hard skills, like thermodynamics or calculus or math or anything like that. In math, you can say, "Oh yeah, I score 70%, so that's pretty good." People know what I'm talking about. If I say, I have 70% in a math test, can you do that in empathy? Some people try. We try too. Say, "Oh yeah, we should measure it like this." It doesn't work very well. It turns out, but we talked to some academia and so on. It turns out they say, "Well, you got to work the problem backwards." You say, "Okay, you want to measure something that is so abstract. Well, how do you have this empathy?" You say, "Well, okay. Well, first of all, you got to have awareness. If you're not aware, if you don't have that mindset, you never have empathy. So okay, yes, awareness is the first point. So, well, how do you increase awareness? Well, you increase exposure. So well, you want empathy, you have to have the awareness, and with the awareness, you need to have the exposure. So I go, wow, this is good. This is all we need is to measure the number of exposure. The more exposure a person has, the more empathy, the more, well, nothing in life is a guarantee, but the more exposures they have, it will turn out that they will behave more appropriately in more civil ways. So that's this average of tendency. It's like AI. It's not certain. It's all probability. It's all tendency. So with that, they say, yes, Patrick, this is the way to go. So we measure, that's why we chop up all the content into what we call mini lessons. So the more mini lessons they got exposed to, well, over time, over months or years, they do become more civil. They do tend to become having better manners and so on. So we measure the number of exposure. Each exposure is worth 1 point. And so if they have 100 points, that means they have 100 exposure, whatever that means. So far, I kind of see that we have 10 steps to go, but we have only taken step number 1, the baby step. In the future, with AI coming, it's actually going to help because AI can help us in seeing patterns. If we work with some universities, some professors, and they design some content, they design 1 mini lessons, let's say, we can map out how effective that mini lessons is for a particular person with a particular background, ethnic background, education, and so on, can be mapped to certain lessons. So with that kind of mapping, we can actually have very, very good lessons for every individual. So it'll be very individualized. So this is a kind of what they call big data. And this is something that AI can help out in the next 5 years, we would think.
Thank you, Patrick.
And Catherine or Laura, any question that you want to ask?
Thank you, Mauricio and Ella and Patrick, for your presentation. Your passion always comes through, so I can feel your enthusiasm and your commitment and your dedication to this work. And I'm curious, at the beginning you said discipline is so important to move talent into action. And I'm curious, what keeps you dedicated and passionate about this work?
Well, I guess I realize, there's that I'm immortal. I'm going to be gone in, I don't know, if I'm lucky, maybe a few more decades. I have two young girls that are coming up line. They're just beginning their life and so on. What kind of world would they live in? That's something as a father, I think about quite a bit. I was a techie. And then we set up a company, and then we sold the company, and we were saying, what's the next big thing we want to do? And it turns out that there are some of our old customers saying, hey Patrick, we want you to train our company, all the satellite companies in this soft skill, this international thinking in that regard. And it's a Japanese company, and then so say okay, and they say, well, what kind of curriculum would you do? What kind of standard would you use? And I go, well, what do you mean? What's the standard? Maybe there's some kind of ISO. So I ran to ISO. They don't have any standards in soft skills. They have standards in industrial processes and so on. So a light bulb came off our head and say, now if this company has this problem, other companies will have the same kind of issue in having company culture issues. And so we say, well, okay, so this is the standard that we want to build. So I went around the world and assembled a group of trainers in Singapore, in the Netherlands, USA, Canada, South America, and so on. And they hammer out some business etiquette 101 as a start. So that was the start of it, and so companies can use this standard. It's open source, like IDG. We're totally open source, and everybody can get this document that we spent. As an ignorant engineer, I thought, well, how hard could this be? Is this business 101 talking about dress code and answering phone calls and so on. Okay, let me give it 3 weeks. Okay, we can do it in 3 weeks. It turns out it was 4 years that they didn't agree. All the experts, they said, "Whoa, we thought we were doing like this." They were training it in their way. It turns out that there are things that they didn't agree. We said, okay, this is the standard interface. That if we have people from Brazil, people from China, people from India, Nigeria, all go onto a cruise ship and have dinner together, are they going to be able to enjoy one another instead of finding other culture, other way of eating to be annoying? So that's the standard interface we want to build, so that everybody can understand this is the right protocol. So that is the way how we started 14 years ago. And so one thing led to another. People say, well, this is training people from the outside in, so that when they have this kind of etiquette, they tend to have more respect for one another. So that affects their inequality too, their respect and empathy. So instead of finding people, eating loudly, well, they empathize and they understand that, well, that's to show appreciation to the chef. So it's a very different kind of thinking. They find some groups are very loud, but in their culture, it's about, they want it to be loud. It's being jovial, being, everybody being together and so on. So it's a very different world. But if you don't understand that, you dislike that group, and that's how stereotype came about. And so that's the intercultural awareness that we need to educate the younger people in that regard, and then also older people too. I think older people, sometimes we're even more set in our ways than younger people nowadays. So if we talk about something like this to the kids, they actually educate their parents. Say, Mom, we don't do this over here, and so on. With the immigrants and all that going on, that tends to be quite important. And there's also a term called DEI, diversity, equity, and inclusion, and that's what is needed in many situations regarding that. So it's a long answer to you, Catherine, about what's motivating me to get up in the morning, and that's that. So that my girls and their generation wouldn't hate us so much in saying that, we're the one putting in all the debt to them and we're ruining the environment for them and so on, which, in some sense, they're not wrong. It's just that, our generations, we had our own problems, but we need to be able to help the younger generation having a better life in that regard.
Thank you, Patrick. And I think that, what you just said, it was kind of the initial motivation and the engine behind many of our work with this book as well, in how to foster and collect and co-create all these different stories and practices across the world, right? And how much of that can help for a more sustainable future, and, bringing that together. And it's interesting because your chapter has gone through a big process, right? Through the review, through the conversation we have, and more I saw how much of your work you realize it connected and integrated with what inner development means in the different dimension, and how much of your work bring to that. And that where, I felt that, has this cathartic space, right, into your initial work that was what you have done in the past, but more through the process of co-creation of your chapter, and how much of that became part of IDG, right? And how much of that became something else, right? I don't know if you want to share anything about the process.
Yeah, I think, before we came across IDG, we can hand wave, say, they need this is the framework that is important. But with IDG, it actually gives us a very concrete framework, really, not an example, but this is it. Okay, this is it, guys. This is what we need to do. This is how we should. When we talk to academia and say, well, why don't you guys build some kind of video or lessons or short essay? This is the framework that we use now. Is IDG is it, and this is how IDG has created all the different levels of it, and it's very methodical. It has been hammered out by many people around the world. So if there's going to be revision, it's not going to change very much, but keeping on to something like this. So I think when people can refer to something that is concrete, and they can see right on the IDG webpage or the framework all on one page, it's a very good sense of unity, and it prompts people to say, okay, we can do this part here, we can do this part here, and that part there, knowing the whole big picture that they can see. So and we all say, we should all be a cog in this big IDG wheel, a very good wheel, and we all can be a part of it. Very inclusive, everybody is included, so that we can really roll forward in a very coherent way, instead of just, we should be this, we should be that, and so on. That becomes very disheartening, because people don't have that grasp, don't have that rootedness. While now we have a good root, how do we blossom into trees and leaves and so on in that sense.
Thank you, Patrick. Laura, I don't know if you want to ask any question or anybody else.
I mean, I joined late, so I missed the first half. So, I think I probably actually have a few questions, but I also don't want to ask anything kind of out of context. I suppose one question I would like to ask is, and you may have addressed this, is actually just the challenges with teaching soft skills to adults, and in particular adults versus young people. Like, what are the kind of primary barriers that you come up against, particularly if they exist within people who want to learn and who are engaged to learn?
I think that's a $1 million question, and it's very hard. We find that young people, kids, they absorb things like a sponge, good things, bad things. So setting them on a good course is a wonderful thing. Older people, we don't change. So a lot of the a 3-hour lecture, you gather all the employees to learn about business ethics. It doesn't work very well, unfortunately. It's better than nothing, but a lot of research show that people go back to the old ways after 3 weeks. So that's why you don't see a lot of company L&D managers wanting to train on something like this. There are two reasons. One is, Patrick, I can't pull out all my engineers, during the productive time to sit in a lecture for 3 hours. You know how much it costs? And it's also disruption to their way of thinking, the people doing the intellectual work and so on. They're designing work. And companies are not there to help people to become better. They're there to build a product and make money, So this is a distraction to them. That's challenge number one. Challenge number two, like I said, is too short term. It's, a 3-hour lecture on business ethics is good, but it's not enough. So the thing really is to have this really little nuggets of information over time that they can read something or watch something while they're waiting for the bus. And so without that kind of lifestyle workflow disruption, there's a better chance of working. And what we have done with the World Civility Index is we do most of the heavy lifting, so companies don't have to do anything. You just say, well, okay, this is the reading you can go on and do, and companies can have all kinds of games in, one employee earn 50 points in half a year and get a prize and so on. It's making it like a game in that regard. But one thing is short term. I would even recommend not to do it, because it would be just a joke when the company say, oh yeah, we're gonna do this for 3 weeks, and 3 weeks afterwards we're gonna do some measurement to see if we have any improvement. Well, it's a waste of time. And I worked as an engineer for more than 10 years, and whenever something like this comes up, deep down we just laugh. The company, the HR managers lose credibility, because this is not going to work. It's counterproductive in that sense. But if the company comes in, no, this is a long-term thing. Our company is all in, and it's our DNA, and so this kind of program is ongoing for there's no end time in that. And we do that kind of measurement. We measure much bigger things like attrition. We measure mental wellness over time, instead of a short term. After 3 months, well, how do you feel about the training and so on and so on. If I have to answer questions like that, I'll say, oh yeah, it's great, it's all great. You don't know who's going to read it, right? So those are kind of games that we all see as employee in big companies. I work in Canada, I work in the States. You see fun things like that. Of course, human resource people are trying to say, well, what is the solution? What can we really do to change company culture and so on. So it's both easy and hard. The easy is, well, you really have to jump right in, but it's hard because most companies don't jump in. They just say, well, okay, this is off topic. We'll do compliance training. We'll do training in software and coding and all that. The easy things. So that seems to be the situation that I see. I don't know if I'm making any sense or.
Oh no, I mean absolutely. I mean I think I've seen that. I'm sure everyone here has seen that. So yeah, but it's interesting again, just that returning to the long-termism of the work, that there's never just it's not in the technique, it's not in the training, it is in the continual exposure and the continual saturation, the continual returning to, that's where the work lies.
Yeah. I'll jump in here. I think that's where IDG comes in big time, because IDG set the framework, put in all the sweat and do that. All the millions of companies around the world, they don't have to reinvent the wheel or anything. It's just that, well, it is here. It's the standard so that everybody can use it. It's open source. This framework is, you can look at it on the web and it's all there. And so how do companies build the training program based on something like this? Is a big business opportunity I see, where training companies can adopt the IDG, saying, well, this is the framework, and so there's a reference. So human resource people will say, yes, this is it, and the company don't have to lift a finger to benefit in a very big way, because if they follow this, they know they are not going to be, running in the wrong way, but this is the way that they can implement something like this. So I think the standard is very important, like ISO and so on. Why people adopt ISO standard is because it allows them to up the game, to improve their quality very, very quickly. They don't have to reinvent the wheel. So I think that is that is one good thing about IDG.
And at the same time, it's unique. What I find that is unique for every context, and that's where the beauty about your work, Patrick, and also many others chapters that we see, how much of even the core, the essence, the objective, the aim is the same, then the application is completely different, and that basically is the wide range of how this grow up adult development happen, right? That is completely different, like a recipe that, take and use, but rather, how much of all this deep work can depend on the context, be applicable for organizing.
Just to add or to ask something on that, because, for example, Patrick, when you give it, I see sometimes when I do a course in Coursera, let's put it, and then I find one part boring. So I just tick done and I move to the next one. So what is the possibility of the people who use the app, the index? Can they just do it? Because it's again the same thing like with the IDG framework, what Mauricio was saying, that depending actually on the instrumentalization of what we have. So do we use it to help us go through our personal development journey or organizational development journey, or do we use it just to have, this point system, these points that then they will help us get a better job? So have you thought about this thing, how to make sure that it is closer to what it should be actually, to an authentic approach?
Yeah. Well, I think again, getting a job or keeping a job is just the step number one. There needs to be more deeper, perhaps even more spiritual connections with the inner development. But this is a good start. We start from there because besides me, my co-founders, they are all trainers. And they all do wonderful work in corporate training, and so that's the world that we see. Is corporate training is the starting point. But like I mentioned earlier, we're all going to be running out of a job, and even if we don't, there's a big population that is going to be without jobs in the traditional sense. the inner development comes in a very big way. You know, the resilience, different way of adopting to the new world order. How do we do that? You know, I think we're at the very beginning of solving this issue. The news, the media, and so on. They talk about the most recent AI, the most recent nuclear fusion and solar power, and so on. Very few talked about, well, what are we going to do with the 8 billion friends around the world? How are we going to live together so that it could be a wonderful world? Well, maybe because of the algorithm on YouTube and so on, I don't see a lot of videos or media talking about something like this. So that's the most important thing. But you know, people don't talk about it because maybe news like that don't sell. It's too mundane. It's too boring. It's too abstract. It's too long term. So nobody goes around solving it. Everybody solves about the immediate inflation and so on. But what about the longer term things? And that is all our mental health. You know, I'm used to working. So even though if I don't have to work, I work. But what happens if you say, no, Patrick, you know, you have to sit home and the government is going to give you something called UBI, a universal basic income, that you're going to have 1,000 euro or $1,000 or whatever, no questions asked. I think I'm going to go crazy. I think I would not do very well because, yeah, you know, I won't starve, but what am I going to do? You know, so those are very important humanity questions that I think nobody's in a position to answer something like this, but IDG is in that regard.
Thank you.
Thank you, Patrick. And we ran out of time, but you know, it has been a wonderful short presentation of your chapter, and you know, really the essence. I think that you know is clear into how much of your work with the Civil Index connect with IDG and how wonderful that chapter is. I really enjoy reading through that and reviewing that and looking forward for when it's ready to go out to the public. So thank you so much, Patrick. Thank you, Catherine, Laura, Ella. Have a wonderful day.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Bye. Thank you. Bye-bye. Take care. Bye-bye.
Thank you.